The car didn't stop at the red light. It stopped at the silence. A thick, heavy silence that fell right after her words landed in the air, sharp and careless, like glass thrown without looking. "Do you even understand English?" she said, not even lifting her eyes from her glowing phone. "Or should I speak slower for you?" The sentence lingered between them, toxic and smug, as if it had been said 1,000 times before and never once challenged. Outside the windshield, the city rushed by in streaks of light and motion, horns blaring, people crossing streets with purpose. But inside that car, time seemed to hesitate, as if even it didn't know how to move forward after what had just been said. The driver's hands tightened around the steering wheel. Not a jerk, not a shake, just a subtle pressure, knuckles firm, grip steady, not anger, restraint, the kind learned over years, the kind sharpened by experience. He had learned long ago that reacting too fast gave people like her exactly what they wanted: power, control, proof that their words mattered more than his dignity. So he stayed still. He breathed, in through his nose, out through his mouth, slow, measured. The way you breathe when you're trying not to drown in something invisible. She sat in the back seat like she owned the space. Designer coat draped perfectly over her shoulders. Gold watch catching the light every time she moved her wrist. Her phone buzzed and glowed, a constant reminder that her time mattered more than everyone else's. She didn't look at him when she spoke. Didn't need to. In her mind, he wasn't someone you looked at. He was part of the service, like the seatbelt, like the door handle, useful, replaceable, silent. To her, the insult wasn't cruelty. It was routine, a casual flex of social muscle. A joke she would later forget before the next stoplight. A reminder of the invisible line she believed separated people like her from people like him. Above, beneath, simple, clean, comfortable. The car continued forward for a few seconds, tires humming against the road. The GPS voice murmured directions in the background, calm and polite, as if nothing had happened. The driver's eyes lifted to the rearview mirror, not sharply, not accusingly, just enough to meet her reflection. Calm eyes, tired eyes. Eyes that had seen this moment before, dressed in different faces, different voices, but always wearing the same expression. Entitlement. "Yes, ma'am," he said softly. His voice was smooth, clear. No accent bending his words, no hesitation. Perfect English. The kind taught in classrooms, polished by books, sharpened by patience. Precise, controlled. The words slid into the space between them like a quiet correction, though he never said that was what it was. She scoffed, finally looking up. Her lips curled slightly, not in surprise, but in amusement. "Wow," she said, laughing under her breath. "You people are learning fast these days." She shook her head as if impressed, as if she had just complimented a child for tying their shoes. That was when the car finally stopped. Not abruptly, not dangerously, no screech of tires, no sudden jolt, just a smooth, deliberate slowing until the car rolled to a calm halt along the side of the road. The engine hummed. The city kept moving around them, unaware that something had shifted inside this small, enclosed space. She looked up, irritation flashing across her face. "Why are we stopping?" she snapped. "I'm late." Her tone carried expectation, not a question. People usually moved when she said things like that. The driver didn't turn around right away. He placed the car in park, let the click echo. Then he rested his hands in his lap for a moment, fingers loosening, as if releasing something he had been holding for years. He exhaled slowly, a deep breath, the kind that carries weight, the kind filled with swallowed insults, ignored stares, forced smiles, and long nights wondering why respect seemed to cost more for some people than others. "I just wanted to make sure," he said evenly, his voice calm enough to be mistaken for politeness, "that you felt safe continuing the ride." She blinked, confused. Then she laughed, a short, dismissive sound. "Safe?" she repeated. What are you talking about? She rolled her eyes, already reaching back for her phone, already deciding this was a waste of her attention. He met her gaze in the mirror again. This time he didn't look tired, he looked present, fully there. Sometimes, he continued, people say things without realizing how they sound. I just wanted to give you a moment to decide if this ride still works for you. For the first time, she felt something unfamiliar stir in her chest. Not guilt, not yet, just discomfort. The kind that comes when a mirror is held up unexpectedly. She shifted in her seat. Look, she said, waving a hand, I didn't mean anything by it. Just drive. He nodded. Slowly, respectfully. He shifted the car back into gear, pulled into traffic. The ride resumed, but the air had changed. It felt heavier now, thicker. Every block they passed seemed slower than the last. She stared at her phone, scrolling without seeing. He focused on the road, every movement deliberate, every turn smooth, as if the car itself had learned patience from him. She didn't know it yet, but this moment would follow her. Not loudly, not immediately, but faithfully. Like a shadow that waits for the right light. She didn't know what he carried behind that silence. The degrees folded away in a drawer at home, the books dog-eared from years of study, the discipline earned in spaces where he had to be twice as calm to be seen as half as competent. She didn't know how many times he had chosen dignity over defense, how many times he had decided that surviving the moment mattered more than winning it, and she didn't know who the next passenger would be. To her, this was just another ride, another driver, another forgettable interaction in a day full of meetings and deadlines. She would step out of the car soon, straighten her coat and move on, convinced the world still bent in her direction. But the road had already shifted beneath her feet, because this wasn't just a ride anymore. It wasn't just a careless comment floating away into traffic. It was the first crack in a story she believed she understood. The first pause before a sentence she didn't yet know how to finish. The city lights reflected off the windshield as they drove on, bright and indifferent. The driver kept his eyes forward, steady and focused, as if he could already see something coming that she could not. And in that quiet space between the hum of the engine and the rhythm of the road, something waited, patient, unavoidable. This was the beginning of a reckoning. She stayed in the car. That was her first mistake. The door had been unlocked. The moment had been there. A clean exit, pride intact, silence preserved. But she stayed, settling back into the seat like the world would still bend for her if she waited long enough. The car rolled forward again, smooth and quiet, but the air inside was no longer neutral. It pressed against the chest, heavy, tight. Every mile felt longer than the last, like the road itself was resisting the direction they were headed. She cleared her throat, loud enough to be noticed. Then louder. Her voice filled the space the silence had claimed. She started talking again, faster now, sharper, commenting on the traffic, complaining about the route, correcting him when he hadn't misspoken. You missed that turn, she said, even though the GPS confirmed he hadn't. No, pronounce it like this, she added, rolling her eyes, even though his words had been clean and clear. Each sentence was a small test, each correction a reminder of who she believed was in charge. You should be grateful, she said suddenly, tapping her phone against her palm like punctuation. People like me keep you employed. She said it the way someone says the weather. Casual, certain, as if it were a fact no one could argue with, as if his life had been handed to him by strangers like her instead of earned inch by inch through patience and sacrifice. He nodded, just once, a small motion, not agreement, not surrender, strategy. He had learned long ago that some storms weren't meant to be fought head-on. Some needed time, space, a calm center. His eyes stayed on the road, but his mind moved faster, tracking details, timing, the quiet hum beneath the noise. He let her words pass through the car without catching them, like rain sliding off glass. The city changed around them. Tall buildings gave way to wider roads. The traffic thinned. The sky opened up. At a long stoplight, his phone buzzed softly in the console. The sound cut through her voice like a blade. She paused, annoyed at the interruption, as if even his notifications were disrespectful. He glanced down. A new ride request, high priority, airport pickup, private terminal, the kind of request that came with tight schedules and important names. He didn't react, didn't smile, didn't sigh. He accepted it with one tap and placed the phone back where it was. She noticed the change in direction a few minutes later. "Where are we going now?" she asked, irritation creeping back into her tone. "This doesn't look right." He didn't answer right away. He took the next exit. The road curved. Security fencing appeared, signs marked with small print and authority. Her irritation sharpened into suspicion. "This isn't my destination," she snapped. "I told you where I'm going." "No," he replied calmly, his voice steady as ever. "It's his." The car slowed at a gate. A guard waved them through after a brief check. She leaned forward now, confusion pulling her posture out of its usual comfort. "What is this?" she demanded. "I don't have time for this." He pulled up to the terminal and stopped, engine idling, silence returning. "Just a moment," he said. Before she could argue, the rear door on the other side opened. A man stepped in. He moved with ease. No rush, no show, tailored suit. Dark, simple, expensive without trying to be. His shoes barely made a sound against the pavement. He slid into the seat beside her, nodding once as the door closed. The car felt smaller with him inside, not crowded, focused. She froze. Her breath caught in her throat as recognition hit her like cold water. She knew him. Everyone did. A global investor. A man whose name appeared in headlines without explanation. A media favorite. A quiet power broker who didn't speak often but moved markets when he did. Someone whose approval opened doors she had spent her life knocking on. Someone whose attention she had chased through emails, dinners, conferences. Someone who had never once replied. "Good afternoon," the man said warmly. But he wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the driver. His smile was genuine, respectful. "Thank you for being early, Professor." The word landed heavy. Professor. The woman's heart stumbled. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She laughed, a thin, nervous sound that didn't quite fit the space. "Professor?" she repeated, forcing a smile. "I didn't know you drove." The sentence trailed off unfinished, unsure of itself. The driver met her eyes in the mirror. Just once, not to challenge, not to embarrass, just to be seen. "I didn't know you judged," he said quietly. The investor's smile faded, not into anger, into attention. He looked between them, eyes sharp now, reading the room the way only someone used to power could. "Is there a problem?" he asked gently. She shook her head too quickly. No, she said. "Just a misunderstanding." Her voice sounded smaller than she expected. She adjusted her coat, her watch suddenly too tight on her wrist. The car pulled away from the terminal, merging back onto the road. The city returned, but it felt different now. Closer, watching. The driver drove, calm, professional. The investor sat back, silent but aware. The woman stared out the window, her reflection staring back at her, unfamiliar. Minutes passed. The silence grew louder than her earlier insults. Finally, the investor spoke again. "Professor," he said, curiosity layered over respect. "How is the project going?" "Well," the driver replied, slow but meaningful. He paused. "Change always is." The investor nodded. "It usually is." He glanced toward the woman, then back to the driver. "I'm glad you agreed to consult. We need voices that don't flinch." Her chest tightened. Consult. Voices. The words stacked up, heavy with implication. This man wasn't just driving. He wasn't just surviving. He was shaping things, advising people who shaped the world she believed she owned a piece of. She shifted again, uncomfortable now in a way money couldn't fix. The power in the car had moved, quietly, without announcement, and she felt it slipping through her fingers. The driver's phone buzzed again, another notification. He ignored it this time. The road ahead stretched long and straight. The investor looked out the window, thoughtful. The woman swallowed, her earlier confidence dissolving into something closer to fear. The storm she had dismissed as harmless rain was no longer distant. It was overhead now, thick clouds gathering, heavy with truth, and it was about to break. The passenger leaned forward slightly, not rushed, not alarmed, just alert. His movement alone shifted the air in the car. His voice came calm, measured, curious in a way that made it impossible to lie comfortably. "Is there a problem?" he asked. The woman straightened so fast her back hit the seat. Her hands moved at once, smoothing her coat, adjusting her watch, rearranging the mask she wore so well in rooms full of power. "No," she said quickly, too quickly. "No, of course not. Just a misunderstanding." She forced a laugh that sounded thin, fragile, like glass tapped too hard. The car slowed, not to a stop yet. Just enough for her to feel it, just enough for her stomach to tighten. Then the driver pulled over. The tires whispered against the pavement. The engine idled. The city kept breathing around them, but inside the car, everything paused. The driver shifted into park. The sound clicked, final. He turned around fully now, not halfway, not through a mirror. Fully. His shoulders squared, his posture straight, calm, grounded. The kind of calm that comes from knowing exactly where you stand. "No," he said quietly. "It wasn't." The woman's eyes widened. "Excuse me." Her voice tried to climb back to its usual height, but it didn't quite get there. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't rush. He spoke the way teachers speak when they want the truth to land. Slowly, clearly, with no space for denial. He explained everything. Every word she had thrown without care. Every laugh she hid behind politeness. Every correction meant to shrink him. Every assumption made before she ever asked his name. He repeated her sentences back to her, not to mock, but to show her exactly what they sounded like when they were no longer protected by tone or status. The powerful man listened. He didn't interrupt, didn't shift in his seat, didn't glance at his phone. His eyes stayed on the woman, steady and sharp, absorbing each detail. The silence between sentences grew heavy, pressing down on her chest. She tried to speak once, then stopped. Tried again, then thought better of it. Each word the driver spoke stripped something away from her confidence, layer by layer, until all that was left was exposure. When the driver finished, the car was quiet, too quiet. Then the powerful man smiled, not kindly, not warmly. It was the kind of smile that comes when someone finally understands the shape of a situation. "You see," he said, turning toward the woman, his tone still calm, still polite. "The man you belittled turned down a six-figure academic position." He paused, letting that sink in. A role most people spend their lives chasing. He walked away from it. Her face drained of color. He walked away, the man continued, to help build a transportation network for underserved communities. Places where people wait hours for rides, places where opportunity doesn't arrive on time. He glanced toward the driver with something close to respect. He chose impact over income. The woman's mouth parted slightly. No sound came out. "He speaks 4 languages, the man added, as if listing facts from a file she had never bothered to open. "He's published research on urban access, and right now he's advising my board on ethics and inclusion." He leaned back, folding his hands. "That's why I call him Professor." Silence swallowed the car whole. It wasn't the kind of silence that waited to be filled. It was the kind that erased everything that came before it. The woman stared straight ahead, eyes unfocused, as if the city outside had suddenly disappeared. Her reflection in the window looked smaller, paler, unfamiliar. The driver finally spoke again. His voice was soft, but it didn't need volume anymore. The truth had already done the work. "English was never my weakness," he said. He met her eyes now, not with anger, not with pride, just honesty. "Your empathy was..." She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. Nothing came out. For the first time in her life, money didn't shield her. Status didn't save her, words didn't work, the tools she had relied on for decades failed her all at once. There was no deal to make, no smile to trade, no influence to call in, just a mirror she hadn't expected to face. Her mind raced, searching for footing. Apology, excuse, humor, none of it felt safe anymore. Each option collapsed before she could reach for it. She felt exposed in a way she had never experienced. Stripped of certainty, stripped of control. The powerful man watched her, not cruelly, but carefully. "You know," he said, almost gently, "the most dangerous thing about power is not how it changes people. It's how it convinces them they don't need to listen." He let the words hang there. "You didn't listen?" She swallowed hard. Her throat felt tight. Her hands trembled slightly in her lap. She had spent her life commanding rooms, but now she couldn't even command her own voice. The driver turned back toward the road. He didn't need to look at her anymore. The truth had already landed. He shifted the car back into drive. The engine hummed, familiar, steady. The city returned to motion, but something fundamental had changed. Power had shifted. Not loudly, no shouting, no humiliation staged for revenge, just clarity. Just truth spoken at the right moment, in the right place. The kind of shift that doesn't announce itself but lasts. The woman sat there, silent, her reflection still staring back at her. She saw herself differently now, not as she wished to be seen, but as she had been. She remembered her words, replaying them with new ears. Each one felt heavier now, each one sharper. She felt something unfamiliar press against her chest. Shame. The powerful man broke the silence again, his tone even. "You don't have to say anything," he told her. "But you should think about what kind of person you want to be when no one is impressed by you." She nodded faintly. It was all she could manage. The car moved forward, carrying them toward destinations that no longer felt certain. The driver focused on the road ahead, his face calm, but his chest felt lighter. Not because he had won, but because he had stood still long enough for the truth to catch up. Behind him, the woman stared out the window as buildings passed by in a blur. Each one felt like a question she didn't yet know how to answer. For the first time, the world did not bend to her expectations. It simply moved on, and she was left sitting with the weight of who she had been, and the unsettling question of who she might become. The hierarchy she had trusted her whole life lay shattered, not by force but by honesty, and there was no way to put it back together the way it was. Not now, not ever. The woman was dropped off in silence. The car slowed gently, tires whispering against the pavement as if even the road had learned restraint. The driver pulled to the curb, placed the car in park, and waited. No words followed. No lecture, no final look meant to wound. The door unlocked with a soft click. She hesitated, fingers hovering over the handle, as if she expected something else to happen. An apology, a confrontation, a chance to rewrite the moment, but none came. Silence filled the space where her power used to sit. She stepped out of the car without looking back. The door closed behind her with a quiet finality. No argument, no apology asked for, none needed. The car pulled away, merging back into the flow of the city, leaving her standing there with the echo of her own words and nowhere to put them. Inside the moving car, the driver exhaled. Not relief, release. The kind that comes when a weight you've carried so long you forgot it was there finally loosens. He didn't check the mirror. Didn't need to. The road ahead was clear. Another ride request came in. He accepted it. Another destination. Another life intersecting briefly with his own. But something had changed. Not outside. Inside. He noticed it in the way his chest felt lighter. In the way the city looked sharper, more honest. In the way silence no longer felt like something he had to defend. He drove with the same calm, the same patience. But there was a quiet certainty now. A settled truth. Behind him, blocks away, the woman walked into her building slower than usual. The lobby lights felt harsh, too bright. The familiar faces at the front desk looked the same, but she felt different moving past them. Smaller, quieter. Her heels echoed louder than she remembered. Each step replayed fragments of the ride she couldn't escape. The words she had thrown so easily now returned, heavier, sharper, stripped of humor. She sat through meetings that afternoon, nodding at charts she had seen 100 times. Her phone buzzed. Emails stacked up, life continued. But something underneath it all felt unstable, like a belief had cracked and everything built on it was shifting. Days passed, then weeks. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Short, polite, professional. Her company was losing a major partnership. No scandal, no press release. Just a decision made quietly, respectfully, permanently. The reasons were vague. A shift in values, a new direction, alignment issues, words that sounded harmless until they weren't. She stared at the phone long after the call ended. She didn't need to ask who was behind it. She already knew. Not because he had threatened her, not because he had warned her, but because power, real power, never needed to announce itself. She never said his name publicly, never told the story, never admitted why her confidence felt different now. But she remembered his face, the calm in his eyes, the way he hadn't needed to raise his voice to be heard, the way the truth had done all the work for him. At night, alone, she replayed the moment he turned around in the car, fully, calmly. How small her words had sounded once they were no longer protected by her status. She thought about the word professor, how it had landed, how it had undone her. She began to notice things she had never paid attention to before, the way she spoke to servers, the way she looked at people whose names she never learned. Each interaction now carried a question she couldn't ignore. Meanwhile, the driver kept driving. Not because he had to. He could have stopped, taken the calls, accepted the offers that had been waiting longer than she knew. But he chose to keep driving. Because there was something honest about it, something grounding. Because every ride was a reminder that people carried stories you couldn't see from the outside. He drove early mornings and late nights, through rain and traffic and quiet streets that felt like secrets. He listened more than he spoke, watched faces in mirrors, heard laughter, heard grief. Sometimes he helped someone unload groceries. Sometimes he waited while someone cried. He treated every passenger the same, not out of obligation, out of principle. Because dignity isn't about titles. It isn't about how loud your voice is or how expensive your clothes look. It's about how you treat people when you think no one important is watching, when you believe the moment doesn't matter, when you assume the other person won't remember. He never raised his voice. Not that day, not after. He didn't seek revenge. Didn't chase humiliation the way it had been offered to him. He didn't need to. Revenge is loud, but it fades. Truth is quiet, and it lasts. He let the truth speak. Months later, at a conference filled with polished floors and softer lies, the woman spotted him across the room. He was standing near a window, speaking calmly with a small group. No spotlight, no crowd. Just attention earned, not demanded. She froze. For a moment, she considered walking over, saying something, apologizing, explaining. But she didn't. Some lessons are meant to stay unfinished, so they keep working on you. He noticed her too, just briefly. Their eyes met. No judgment, no smile, just recognition. Then he turned, back to the conversation he was in. The moment passed, but it stayed with her. The driver returned to his car that evening and sat for a moment before starting the engine. The city lights blinked on one by one. He thought about how close anger had come to stealing his peace that day, how easy it would have been to react, how satisfying it might have felt for a moment, and how empty it would have been after. Silence, he had learned, wasn't weakness. It was space. Space to choose. Space to respond instead of react. Space for the truth to arrive on its own time. And that is the lesson. Never confuse silence for ignorance. The quietest person in the room often knows the most. Never mistake a uniform for a limit. What someone wears for work does not define what they carry within them. And never assume language defines intelligence. Words are tools, not measures of worth. Because sometimes, the person you insult on the way up is the one who decides whether you rise or fall. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with a choice you never see coming. Respect is free. It costs nothing to offer and pays back more than you can count. Arrogance, though, is expensive. It charges interest, and eventually, it always collects. The road kept moving, the city kept breathing. And somewhere between the noise and the silence, dignity spoke louder than anything else ever could.